population growth rates or growth curves is nothing but we will be talking about the growth rate of a particular population. So population growth rate can be represented by a formula here. Growth rate is represented by small r. It is nothing but the difference between number of births by number of death rates. It is represented by D, as already we have written. In natality we have used the word B. Now it is divided by average population in an interval time. Right. So the growth rate of a particular population, the growth of a particular population will take into consideration all that characters again. The individual grows, reproductive, pre-reproductive, post-reproductive, all that. So basically when we come to the conclusion, it is growth rate. So the growth rate of a particular population can be measured by taking into consideration the difference between the number of birth rate minus number of deaths in a average population taken into consideration at a particular time interval. So now here we will also come across population growth is a decline, the population growth here is growth and decline in a population is done on the basis of the natality and mortality rate of the particular population. Here we will see the growth of the population is more or increases with the it is dependent on the reproductive phase of that particular period. The more the reproductive phase or the more the reproduction is occurring, the maximum reproductive potential will increase the growth of the population. Here we will come across and here in addition to reproductive phase, you will also take into consideration the environmental resistance. When we say there is a growth in the population, two criteria: either the reproductive phase of that particular population in that particular area must be in a larger time, and also the environmental resistance of that particular individual, of that particular organism, of that particular atmosphere or in that area is more. So this is called as biotic potential. This continuation is called as biotic potential. So what is biotic potential? Biotic potential is nothing but it is represented by a letter R. It is nothing but birth rate minus death rate. Out of the total population, how many birth rates are there, how many are living and how many are dead. The ratio or the difference between the both will give as the biotic potential. The growth of a population can be categorized or based on the percentage of reproductive phase and the environmental resistance capacity of particular individual in a particular atmosphere or in a particular habitat. With reference, you will have a context called as biotic potential. Biotic potential is represented by a letter R, which indicates the number of out of the total population we are talking about. The difference between the birth and the death rate is called as biotic potential, and it is influenced by the different age groups in different populations. The biotic potential is influenced by the ratio of male and female ratio in a particular male and female ratio in a particular population. The n number of females alive and the n number of males alive in a particular population also shows the total biotic potential of that particular population. We will talk about two terms here. First we have talked about biotic potential, right? In biotic potential we have talked considered it as R, and we have said R is equal to birth rate minus death rate. Okay. This is about biotic potential, right? Now one more topic we have term which are important here, that is called as environmental resistance. It is represented by ER. Okay. Now what is ER here? What is ER here? Environmental resistance is nothing but the cumulative the difference between the both the biotic and abiotic factors. Environmental resistance is nothing but the sum total of all the limiting factors like both biotic and abiotic put together, so that there is a variation, so that the reproductive phase is being reduced. The chances of increasing dependence on the reproductive phase is reduced. So here the environmental resistance of a particular population on both the biotic and abiotic factors is considered as environmental resistance. In addition to that, one more term is there. No, these all three terms are very important. Those are carrying capacity. Now, what do you mean by carrying capacity? As the name, it is denoted by the letter K. So, the carrying capacity is the difference between the biotic potential and environmental resistance. The difference between the biotic potential and the environmental resistance is called the carrying capacity. So, here we can call it as K is equal to biotic potential minus environmental resistance. Right. So, this is called as the carrying capacity. In general, we can say the stage where there is no further increase in the population, where the stability of the population occurs, can also be considered as the carrying capacity of that particular population, right. So, these three terms are very important when we are talking, that is biotic potential, environmental resistance and carrying capacity. Okay. Now, we will talk about, this is about population growth when we are talking. These three are important. Now, we will come to the growth curves. There is one more topic here called as growth curves. Now, what is growth curve here? The growth curve is nothing but the size of the population is taken into consideration. The size of the population increases with the increase in the characteristics of the population. Here, the population, the growth of a population is indicated in the form of curves. In this case, we are taking the number of population or the population density on the x-axis and the time interval or the time period in which that population study is done on the x-axis, and on the population density on the y-axis. We will take population density on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. So, in this regard, this is the curves which are drawn taking population density or number of population on y-axis and time on the x-axis. This will give some sort of curves which will show the growth of a population in a particular phase or in a particular time period of a population. So, it may be either pre-reproductive, post-reproductive or reproductive phase. Now, here there are in this these types of curves are called as population growth curves. Okay. So, these curves are basically two types, those are S and J shape. Okay. There are two population growth curves. These are very important. Like population growth curves are the curves which represents the growth of the population at different phasic levels, and here we are taking into consideration a graph where on x-axis we will take the time period and on the y-axis the number of individual or the population density of that particular population. So, there are two shapes, those are called as S-shaped and J-shaped. Okay. Now, when we talk in detail about S-shaped and J-shaped curve, now first we will talk about curve that is called as S-shaped growth curve. Here we are taking the population density on y-axis and time on the x-axis. Now, in this this is called as S-shaped curve is called as S-shaped is also called as sigmoid growth curve. It is also called as sigmoid growth curve. This is very important. Now, first and basic is it is density dependent. Okay. Now, you see the curve here, positive acceleration phase, log growth phase and negative acceleration phase. Here at the top you will have the carrying capacity. As I said, carrying capacity is a capacity where the decline in the growth capacity of a particular individual occurs, right. Now, how we explain the S shape, why we got sigmoid shaped is because as I said earlier, it is density dependent. At the initial stages of growth, for example, if we start here at the pre-reproductive stage, okay, there are three phases, always we take into consideration three phases: pre-reproductive, reproductive, post-reproductive. So, now here the population growth will start slowly at the initial level. At the pre-reproductive phase, when the growth of the population start, the growth phase is very slow initially, and later on at the log phase, when it goes on comes to the reproductive and post-reproductive stage, the growth of the population is more. That is why from here initial to it is rising here, right. And when it comes to the reproductive phase, the third phase, we will see the curve is declining and it turns towards bending down, right. So, at sigmoid shape curve, the growth of the population at initial level is very slow, and when it passes through the reproductive phase, as it goes on moving upwards, you will see the hike. See here, from here it is slow, from here it is going up. So, the increase in the population growth is more in the log phase than in the lag phase, and when it comes to the declining phase or at the reproductive phase, you will see the curve is bending and ready to decline. So, here at this phase is the reproductive phase, and here you will see the death rate is starting more. So, the decline of the growth is occurring here. So, at this point of time, you can say that there exists a carrying capacity. So, the carrying capacity is nothing but the saturation level of that population. From here on, there will be no increase in birth rate. Here the multiplication, or this phase is the decline in the growth occurs. Here the declination of the population is occurring. So, as it is there, it is giving in the form of S. If you observe slowly, you will see the form of S, right. So, this is why it is called as S-shaped growth curve or sigmoid growth curve, and it is also called as density dependent growth curves. It depends on the number of individuals present on the population. Now, where we will see in all the laboratory conditions, where you can see this type of growth curves, you will see in many populations of microorganisms, plants and animals, both in natural and environmental conditions and at laboratory conditions. This is very important, and in lakes and oceans, these all are important for your multiple choice questions. In lakes and oceans also you will see the S-shaped curve, S-shaped sigmoid growth curves in lakes and ocean. Next here, this can be measured by a formula called as this growth curve can be measured or calculated by increase in the population is equal to, it can be written as dn by dt, dn by dt is equal to r this. So, increase in population on the basis of sigmoid curve, it can be written as like this. This is very important. dn by dt is equal to r capital N, this is small r capital N, k minus n by k. Okay. Now, I will just give the attributes of this here. The sigmoid curve of sigmoid shape or S-shaped growth curve of a population can be represented mathematically or in the form of a formula that is written here. Increase in population d of number of individuals in a population by the value change in the value of time. T is time here, N is the capital N is the number of individuals, R is the biotic potential, K is the carrying capacity of that population. So, attributes here is K is the carrying capacity, R is the biotic potential, N is the number of existing population in a individuals in a population. Number of existing individuals in a population is capital N, R is biotic potential, K is carrying capacity. So, if you are talking in terms of sigmoid curve or sigmoid growth curve of a population, it can be written as increase in population dn by dt is equal to biotic potential of number of individuals in a population into carrying capacity minus number of individuals by carrying capacity of that particular population. This equation is useful for calculating the S-shaped growth curves in a particular population. So, basically this is dependent on the density. So, this is called as density dependent. This is more important. All these points are very important for multiple choice question. What questions you will get from here is, there are two types of growth forms. First one is S-shaped growth form. Second point, it is also called sigmoid shaped growth form. Third point, it is density dependent growth form. And fourth point, these are many populations of microorganisms, plants and animals which are living under both natural and laboratory conditions will show this type of growth curve, and the animals belonging to lakes and oceans also show this type of growth forms. And here, in addition to this, the growth pattern or in the S-shaped curve is at initial level the growth is very slow, and then as it goes on from lag phase to log phase, pre-reproductive phase to reproductive phase, the growth is very high, and when it comes to the reproductive phase, the growth is stopped. It comes to a saturation point from where the decline of the growth is coming. So when we see the curve here, from slow to up, and it is bending here. So here the death rate starts, the birth rate is very much stopped here. So here we can see the presence of carrying capacity, which is nothing but the saturation point of birth rate. So this is very important when you are talking in terms of growth curves. Okay, this is about S-shaped curve. Okay, next curve we are having is this sigmoid curve can also be calculated by using this formula, where capital N is the number of individuals in a population, T is the time period, K is the carrying capacity, R is the biotic potential of that particular population. I have given the definitions of biotic potential, carrying capacity earlier before discussing this. Now we will talk about J-shaped curve. Another type of growth curve we are supposed to study is that is called as J-shaped growth curve. This is also very important here. J-shaped curve, like S-shaped curve, it is also called as density independent curve. It is called as density independent curve. Now it describes a situation in which in a new environment the growth of the organism after establishing in the new environment will show a hike in the growth. The growth of the population will be more rapid after establishing in the lag phase. Okay, at the lag phase, after establishing in the new environment, it will show rapid growth in the log phase, and at the peak level you will see the decline in the growth of the organisms in a particular environment because of the presence of environmental fluctuations or environmental resistance, because of the presence of environmental resistance. Means here, after a community or a population is established or get familiar with the new environment, slowly it establishes in the environment, and as it keeps on growing, you will see the rapid rise of the there is a rapid shoot up of the growth from the lag phase to the log phase, and at the decline stage you will see that there is a crash of the growth because of the presence of economical resistance, environmental resistance. You will see there will be decline in the growth rate. So this will give ultimately the shape of J. See, when you see here, the shape will be like this. It will first adjust to the new environment, slowly it starts growth, and at once immediately shoot up, and at the end stage, at the reproductive phase, it will show the decline in the population, and until the final crush, until it reaches the reproductive phase, the growth of the population will be very high, and if at this point, this is called as final point or reproductive phase, the crash of the growth rate will occur. It may be either due to the seasonal variations which it is undergoing, or due to some environmental resistance fluctuations, or due to some other biotic or abiotic factors, because of which the growth of the particular population gets stopped at the final phase, at the crash. So ultimately it will give the appearance of a like this J. So that's why it is called as J-shaped curve, and it is also called as the density independent curve. Now this mathematically this can be derived or indicated by a formula called as dN by dt is equal to Rn. As we said earlier, in S-shaped curve, J-shaped curve can also be calculated mathematically by using the formula dN by dt is equal to Rn. R, I said biotic potential, N is the number of individuals in a population, and T is the time period of that population. So N can be taken as the total population also. So this is about J-shaped curve and S-shaped growth curves of a population. This is very, very important for exam point of view. This is multiple choice questions, at least 8 to 10 comes from S-shaped curve and J-shaped curve. Now this J-shaped curve is found in, where you can see this type of curve here, algal blooms. You will see it in annual plants, and you will also see in insects, and in lemmings in tundra region. These are very important bits. So, they will ask a question dash dash for example, in algal blooms dash type of growth curve is seen. In insects what type of growth curve is seen? J shaped. And this plants belonging to laboratory or all those microorganisms which type of growth curve is seen, that is S shaped. So, this ends with your growth curves. This is very important topic to be taken into consideration. Okay, here also we are taking in J shaped curve, also we are taking the population density on y axis and time period on the x axis. So, at the initial phase after development, after the particular individuals are adapted to a new environment, it starts slowly and immediately it shoots up its growth, and at the decline at reproductive phase it will crash and the growth rate is totally stopped. Okay, this is about J shaped and sigmoid shape of the curve.